Hi, welcome back to Boise Entrepreneur Week. My name is Cassandra Wanek, and I am here with JP Morgan's Technology and Disruptive Commerce Group. And I'm sitting here with Josh, who is the Vice President of AI and Machine Learning at Kount. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good, good. Did I get the title right?
Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
I just made it up anyway, so it's not the most important thing.
What was it yesterday?
I always look at where the hype's going next, just try to get in there a little bit earlier.
Where the puck's going. I like it. I like it. Well, we genuinely haven't met before, so tell me a little bit about yourself. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey with Kount. How long have you been there? What was the title before that?
Yeah. So first, I think this is funny. I was on LinkedIn earlier today, and I saw a picture of this setup.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, casual conversations. That's not intimidating at all, like 3 cameras and all of this kind of stuff like that. It's like, at least I'm not doing that. And I totally forgot that I'd signed up.
You signed up? Yeah.
So, I came to Kount about 7.5 years ago now.
Okay.
So I originated the data science function at Kount. We protect credit card transactions online. These days, we get into various other types of protection of identity and accounts, basically digital interactions in general. So from there, just kind of getting in, finding ways to bring in machine learning and some of these other techniques into what we were doing, and then was able to be part of an artificial intelligence transformation where we rethought, like, how do people consume the results that we get to, really trying to drive more from providing data to providing decisions, more like what you would expect from a person, which is kind of what we mean when we talk about AI.
Got you. Well, it's a hot topic right now. What would you say is kind of like a big misconception and like one of the things that excites you the most about the space?
Yeah, I think I'm actually kind of like, I'm very conservative about how I think change comes in these places. Yeah. I was just at a different conversation this morning with a bunch of business school deans, and they're talking about some pretty serious change that's going to happen in education as you have these tools like ChatGPT and new questions about how you educate kids, how you assess their performance. But it's always interesting to me. I think we tend to see continuation of trends and maybe accelerations of trends versus like a complete paradigm shift. There's certainly a bunch of new things with this AI moment that we're in right now, but the pressures that you hear, I heard them concerned about how do we deal with accreditation? How does accreditation change as we do this? And I heard, what does this mean for kind of the middle class of education that's not the top research universities and not teaching-focused community colleges? And I'm thinking, I worked at Boise State before I came to Kount.
Okay.
And those are the same conversations we were having then. It wasn't about AI then, it was about other things. But I think it puts pressure everywhere that we were already kind of experiencing pressure or risk. A technology like this comes along and it just exposes that.
So what was your role at Boise State?
I was a research scientist there. So I worked as professional staff. I started my career, I was in robotics and unmanned systems, did a lot of military research, really more pure robotics and AI research kind of stuff. It wasn't a very big field back then, so there weren't a lot of us in it. And I got frustrated with not having customers. So I became an engineer to build things, and I'm building things, and I don't know if there's any value because I don't have any test. And I'm like, man, I would really love to see that we were building something that was useful for people. So I started looking at other places I could get into, and I went to Boise State and was able to focus a lot on data center scale computing, which was important for me because everything I had done was field robotics. So it was like, what can you jam on a vehicle?
Yeah.
And then also visualization, which you look at those two things and you're like, well, that was the delta between what I was doing in robotics and what I would need to do in business is data visualization, scientific visualization, and this kind of data center scale.
Yeah.
When I applied for the job at Kount, again, being the first data scientist, they didn't really know how to evaluate me. They were pretty happy with me, like 3rd, 4th interview, something like that. I was meeting with the tech team again, and they're like, we don't even know why we're talking to you again. We said that we should hire you. I get to the end of that conversation, and they're like, when was the last time you wrote a select statement? And I'm like, what's a select statement? And they're like, you work with databases, right? I'm like, no, I've never worked with a database. Which then became like kind of my primary job.
Yeah.
But, that again, like that time at Boise State was great to transition, and also let me keep my eye on the startup community and see where I wanted to make an impact.
Yeah.
Because when you're at a university, everybody will talk to you. There's none of that like guarded, ooh, you might be a competitor kind of a thing.
Okay. I didn't think about that from that perspective of politics being different there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little, first of all, robotics, you're speaking my language. It's a big interest of mine. Some of the companies that we work with think about like companies using robots to pick through recycling, or if you've ever heard of the company called Scythe, they do lawn care. So they have a robot that will do commercial lawn mowing. Got to ride one of those older prototypes recently. So like definitely speaking my language, super interesting stuff. I want to hear a little bit more from you though about your experience with the Equifax Kount acquisition. I think it was seen by the community as a big success, right? Like flags planted, flag is absolutely planted. There's exit opportunities for companies that are building here in this market. It sounds like you were there during that time period. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so I remember talking at a Trailhead event to someone from Techstars out of Boulder. I don't remember his name, or I'd give him credit, but I asked a question of like, what happened in Boulder and what would that look like happening here? And he said there was basically one acquisition that Google made and then they invested. And that made everybody in California look at it and say, well, what's going on in Boulder?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that we're missing there? There's a workforce, there's cool startups. We need to be getting involved. And he said, if you look at Boise, and at the time, T-Sheets, Kount, Cradle Point, Clearwater, none of them had sold.
Yeah.
We've now sold all of them. And he said, we have to, in Boise, think about what's going to be the after. We knew those companies were all going to sell in the next 5 years at the time. What are we going to do about it? And I think that we have been, as a city, tremendously successful in that all four of those, it hasn't been a buy and pull out, it's been a buy and reinvest.
Sure.
And that's what we're seeing from Equifax, is that we're receiving the investment that we wouldn't have had as a homegrown company.
Yeah.
We're getting those resources for us now.
Absolutely. And you're seeing a lot of that reinvestment play out right here at Boise Entrepreneur Week.
Yeah, absolutely.
What session are you most excited for?
I was actually kind of looking forward to Jet's talk, which I guess I'm missing right now for this one. So,
Well, we're about at time, so we can head on in there. But we'll be back. But first, a word from our sponsors.